Was I wrong about the ROG Ally? If you saw my Legion Go review, you'd probably think so. But wait, before you decide to roast me alive, let me tell you what I think now that we're about 6 months or so post-retail release. Before that though, let me also tell you about today's sponsor, nobody, not even you Green, who sent me this Nexode Pro charger, but I'll talk about that later. So make sure you skip ahead to the accessories section if that's all you really care about. And speaking of caring, I value your time more than my watch hours, so I'll skip all the stuff I said in the original review and instead focus today on how my use case has changed, how the Ally has evolved, and then tell you whether I think you should still buy this thing. Starting with my experience, when I first got the device, it was my go-to handheld. Whether on the go, whoops, wrong handheld, no matter where I was pleasantly enjoying games like Hogwarts Legacy and Diablo 4. And since I was previously able to use some 6800U handhelds, I'll say I wasn't completely floored by the performance, but I was definitely happy with the bump up. Back then, my low-key favorite thing, which I still very much enjoy, is the fingerprint reader, as I don't like seeing my grimy fingerprints all over the screen. Then there's the speaker quality. Even after using half a dozen or so handhelds, I think the Ally has the best, if not near the top of the charts, for speakers. I thought this a few months ago, and I still think this now. Alright, let me get the elephant out of the way right now and say that the obvious, which was the microSD card reader issue and the single USB-C port, started to wane on me after about 3 to 4 months. Yeah, I know, just upgrade the internal storage, bruh. The thing is, not everyone wants to do that, but I'll talk more about that SD card problem later. With regards to the USB-C port, since I was forced Steam Deck style to carry around a hub or whatever, it kinda dampened the strength of the portability in my opinion. Nowadays, I obviously don't really use the Ally as much, but I'm again saving the rest of the story for later. I'm gonna move on now to how the Ally has changed. Okay, so I lied.
Liar.
Let's get the microSD card story out of the way right now. For science and the channel, I decided to RMA my device about a month or so ago, and let's say I was a little bit surprised with the turnaround time, given that it took about only 2 weeks or so since I dropped off my Ally. No, not there this time. This time it was dropped off at UPS.
So here I am outside of FedEx. Here's my receipt. And let's see what comes back. All on you now, ASUS.
And then about within 2 weeks or so, I got my device back in hand. This is good. Really good, actually. And it definitely instills the confidence I wanted to have in ASUS originally, especially when I first made my original review. Except, the approach to not saying anything about the fix to date really doesn't inspire me. In case you haven't followed PC hardware closely, ASUS also ran into a storm of sorts with their motherboards in the past. And so I can understand the tiptoeing around this issue, but we still don't have a strong resolution, at least communicatively. And at least not to my knowledge, we still don't have any clear cause of the failures or whether these replacements will stick. And that's kind of disappointing. But enough about that, I'm going to talk about software now. Originally at launch, Armoury Crate SE had a lot to be desired, like buggy TDP settings, roundabout update methods, and the lack of gyro. Where we stand now though is pretty good. A recent update just added gyro controls for those of you out there that care, so this is great news and a welcome update, mainly because it's good to have official support for something like that, despite there being third-party solutions and tools available for some time. And speaking of support, I've gotten a lot more accessories to choose from, which was very different at launch. And there's even more cases than a luxury handbag store. So gone are the days where Ally users are stuck using secondhand Steam Deck accessories. Because now we've got things like this Nexode charger, which supports up to 100 watts and has multiple ports. These types of chargers are important because they're not limited to the lower wattages like many Steam Deck chargers, and don't allow you to use the full 30 watt turbo mode that the Ally is built for. I showcased this one in an accessories guide video before, which I encourage you to check out after this video. But even better than that charger is this smaller version, the Nexode Pro charger. You can see it's about 2/3 the size. Now it is a bit hefty compared to the original Nexode charger, but remember how I was talking about missing out on portability by using a hub? This tiny charger, which is small, is only 65 watts, which is problematic as I mentioned, and doesn't have collapsible prongs. The Nexode Pro charger does. One little thing to note is that between these two chargers, you do lose a single USB-C port compared to the original Nexode charger, but both are 100 watt capable. So this white one is limiting because it only has one USB-C port. And then you're back to having a USB-C port problem. Given that portability, in my opinion, is one of the Ally's greatest strengths compared to the likes of, say, the Legion Go or the Ioneo Kun, you do need a small form factor charger like this, at least I believe you do. And if you recall this JSOX type case, this smaller form factor Nexode Pro is going to net you enough space to fit even a chonker like this 10-in-1 U-Green hub, even if it does look a little snug in there. So before I move on from talking about accessories, it's important to acknowledge that this sore point about having a lack of accessories is something that I still have a problem with when it comes to Chinese handhelds, as accessories will be limited in those cases, even though the communities surrounding them are typically great and often give good recommendations. And that's one less problem for Ally users to worry about, because there's plenty to choose from, maybe even too many to go over right now anyway. So let's get on with the verdict. The Ally, post 6 months or so, is actually in a pretty good place, sans the question marks surrounding the microSD card slot. And since it's been heavily discounted, it's even more aggressively priced now than it was at launch. As of this video, it can be had for around 500 to 600 or so bucks, depending on whether you want to get one new or you're gonna roll the dice on an open box or used one. Just do me a favor and make sure you don't get the non-extreme Z1 version. That one might make a friend of mine retch. So, in other words, if you do decide to get a Z1 Extreme version, that one is a very tough one to beat at that price, and overall a very tough device to beat, even for the likes of the King, the Steam Deck, and its new form, the Steam Deck OLED. I wonder if it's its final form. So rather than waiting, which is something I often recommend, I think the Ally is worth the purchase now, so long as you value portability, FreeSync, and possibly Armory Crate as your priorities on a Windows handheld. If you want a bigger screen, bigger battery, or less Windows shenanigans though, well, you probably need to look elsewhere. What do you think? Are you still holding a pitchfork? Or are you gonna check out that little baby Nexode Pro charger? Or maybe you're gonna check out the Legion Go review next.
GG.